Hi, my name is McKenna, and I did my project on students who are in foster care. So, who are these students? Students in the foster care system are children who have been placed into the foster care system by the state. The foster care system is a system for minors who have been taken away from their family and are placed either in a ward, group home, private home of a state certified caregiver, or a family member who has been approved by the state. 90% of children in the foster care system have experienced a traumatic event. This can look like abuse or neglect, but simply being placed into the foster care system is traumatic on the students itself. This affects students because 75% of children must change schools when they enter the foster care system. And during their first year in the foster care system, they experience an average of 3 different home placements. Not only does bouncing from school to school hinder these students' academic success, but emotional harm and lack of social skills in a classroom from having a hard time adjusting can also hinder these students. So now I'm going to play a quick video for you about what it's like to be in the foster care system from a child's eyes who was in the foster care system.
Being taken from place to place and being sent to a whole new different city and a whole new different family and people that you've never met before, it's a really confusing experience. You just feel torn away from your community. It's like, just imagine that you were going to work one day and it's just a normal day and you're on your way to work and everything is as it's supposed to be, and you watered your dog and you drank your coffee and you tell your kids goodbye and you go to work, and then the police show up at your job and they say, okay, we're moving you to a totally different city and you don't know anybody, and you can't call your family and you can't call any of your friends, and you need to leave your phone here and you can't take any of your stuff with you. We'll figure that out later. And they just pick you up and they transport you to a totally different place and then tell you to just wait in this room for a little while because we're going to figure things out. And then they come and bring you a little sack luncheon, and then it's, oh, just a few more hours and we're going to figure this out. Just here, play with this little toy. Okay, put this little ring on a hook. And then they send you to these really well-meaning people but you have no idea who they are, and their house smells different, and maybe they have a dog and they have hardwood floors. You've only ever had carpet. Like, everything about the experience is alien to you. And all you want is to be able to contact the people that you have a bond with. It's a very disrupting experience. And in a lot of ways, it's a traumatic experience because all of these things are unexpected, and suddenly everything in your world that you felt was safe and secure and concrete is not. And having those ideas shattered is really difficult, especially as a child, because you need that security. You need to know that here's my bed, I can come home to it, and this is where it's going to be, and that's going to be okay. Or here's my mom, and no matter what, she's going to be there for me, and I can just call her and she'll show up, and that's going to be okay. When you can't believe that anymore, it starts to make you question, well, what can you believe? Who can you trust? What is a for sure thing? You begin to stop valuing certain things. You stop valuing relationships because they're not concrete and they're not going to be there forever. And you stop investing yourself in certain things. And all of a sudden, stability isn't really important to you. Having goals isn't important to you. You are concerned with, where are you going to sleep tonight? Are you going to be safe? Who are these people? Doing a simple thing like taking a shower in a stranger's home is a very disconcerting experience. So the more that you get moved around, the more trauma that you endure in that. Every single move is a traumatic experience. So you can see the consequences later on. And really, you can see the consequences pretty early on. As a child who's in foster care, I exhibited signs of not being able to trust other people, of not wanting to connect. I had some really antisocial behavior. I also had a deep dislike for government agencies, for the police, for social workers. Like, I did not believe that they were on my team, because when I'm telling you that this is what I need and you're just not listening and you're saying, well, this is what we feel you need, I can't trust you any longer.
So that was just a short clip of how it's like, a little bit of how it's like to be in the system. So now we're going to talk about why is it important for future teachers to explore the needs of these students. It is important for teachers to understand the students' needs, behaviors, and brain patterns in order for the teacher to know how to educate these students, considering their individual needs. Children in foster care's brains work differently. often because of trauma. For a foster care child, this might look like defiance and manipulation in the classroom. Defiance is a tactic used as a way for a foster child to protect themselves from being hurt. They often don't trust adults in their life, so a lot of times they can be overly defiant to their teachers in order to push them away or test boundaries. Knowing this might help a future teacher to understand what the child is going through, and that most important thing in the situation is to remain calm and just keep pushing the student towards success instead of giving up on that student. Manipulation can also be a survival tactic for a child in foster care. They manipulate to cause chaos and take the pressure off of them because they don't have the proper social and emotional skills to deal with anxiety and stress of school and learning. This would be a great thing for a teacher to know as well, so that they know that the student is not being vindictive and trying to hurt people, and it can help the teacher know how to handle these situations when they arise. So as you see on the big picture, you see the quote normal brain and the abused brain. So on the abused brain, the temporal lobes at the top, which regulate emotions and receive input from the senses are imbalanced. So these children suffer from emotional and cognitive problems, which is extremely extremely common in foster care students. So now we're going to talk about some state laws. So one of the state laws that Texas has is that a free lifetime college tuition and fees waiver. The waiver is active when a student enrolls in dual credit or another course where a student may earn college credit. Award credit, including partial credit, if appropriate for coursework, including electives completed while enrolled at another school. 11th or 12th grade students who transfer to a new school district and does not meet the graduation requirements of a new school district may request a diploma from a former district when on track to graduate at the previous school. So these are just a few state laws that we have. We also have federal laws based on the foster care system, but I just thought that these were super interesting and important. The fact that they were based on education to help these students. So 3 strategies that we can do to reach these students. The first strategy would be to build trust. Oftentimes, students in the foster care system find it difficult to trust adults. Children in the foster care system have a hard time building healthy relationships with adults because many times they have been abused or traumatized by an adult in their life. It is important to build trust with these students in order for these students to feel safe so they are able to engage in activities that the teacher is requiring. Engaging in a positive adult and student relationship can teach these students social and emotional skills that foster care students often lack. Another strategy is being understanding and flexible. When it comes to these students' academics, foster care students are typically behind in school and suffer from gaps in their learning and disabilities due to having an unstable environment. Not to mention the various personal and emotional issues that these students are going through. Homework in a foster care household is usually not the priority. Teachers communicating with these families and being flexible on deadlines can be extremely helpful. Students in the foster care system often have visits with their biological family, which can fill these students with nerves and anxiety, making it hard for them to focus when they have potentially just met with someone who neglected or abused them or a family member in jail. So the third thing that I think is super important to reach these students is learn their stories. Teachers who know what is going on in their students' lives are more likely to be understanding and know how to deal with students' academic and behavioral issues. As we know, being in foster care comes with a whole set of emotions. This can lead to lashing out at a teacher or another student. A teacher being aware of a student's background can help them know how to best handle the situation. For example, a student who does weekly visits with his or her family might be more likely to have a hard day every day that week when they have to go visit. If a teacher knows what day it is, they're more likely to show compassion and give extra attention to that student because that day can be really hard for that student. So here is what I found about the 3 R's. So this is how to include the 3 R's into reaching these students. Relationships are a key part of reaching these students because the students trust their teachers. They are more likely to listen and respond better to direction and correction. Also, when a teacher has a relationship built with a student and learns the student's behaviors, they can read the foster child's nonverbal behavior and sense any distraction or difficulties listening and understanding the lesson at hand. A way to build relationships would be to meet in a small group of students and be able to communicate with them personally, as shown in the photo with the teacher who's at the horseshoe table. This might be good either just to do one-on-one or, like I said, with a small group, so they get to know the student's personality. So relevance is also important because if a student does not feel like the subject or lesson applies to them, they will be less likely to focus on the lesson and complete their assignments correctly. It is important for the teacher to ask themselves the question, is the assignment interesting to the students? Will any of the prompts or questions unintentionally exclude students that might not understand or be interested in the topic? Do assignments mirror things that can be applied to real-life situations? Students are more likely to participate in assignments that might be difficult if they are able to relate to the topic. So rigor is important in making a student successful. There are 4 levels of this. 1 is recall. The student should be able to recall a fact or a piece of information. Level 2 is a skill or concept. The student should be able to use information or conceptual knowledge 2 or more steps. Level 3 is strategic thinking. This requires developing a plan or sequence of steps with some complexity and more than one possible answer. Level 4 is extended thinking. This requires investigation and time to think and process multiple conditions of the problem. So I picked the flashcards at the bottom for this step because flashcards can help students memorize the information in order to recall, apply, and think, and then actually apply the concept. So foster care children are often behind their peers, so it's important to tailor to their specific needs. The teacher should always make sure that the foster care child is learning the same material with the class, but understand that their assignments may be different than other students. For example, the entire class may be learning about the weather cycle. Most of the class might be required to write a research paper on it, while the foster care child may only be required to research and write 3 short facts around the topic. This way, a child in foster care is still learning the same things, but is able to keep up with the rest of the class. So these are just some facts that I thought were interesting about students in the foster care system. So students in the foster care system score 16 to the 20th percentile points below their peers in the state standardized testing. And less than 60% of the students in foster care finish high school. Only 3% of children who have ever been in foster care attend post-secondary education after high school graduation. 42% of students do not begin school immediately after entering the foster care system, often because of missing school records and gaps in school attendance. And then these are the sources that I used. Thank you.